Well, hello, and thank you so much for joining today. I'm very happy to continue this interview series. Today is the third. Um, Before we start, I would definitely like to say a big thank you to our good. Definitely thank you so much. And without further ado, um, let me welcome the guest for today. Her name is Marca Hortensia Mayor Fabiana Faustina. And I know that you've had some challenging times recently, but how are things going right now?
They're fine. I'm settled in a lovely town. I have very nice neighbors. They're Russian, so we speak Russian together, and yeah, things have calmed down and it's fine now. So thank you for asking.
Great. And so let's just jump into it. You
Hmm.
have many different titles. So could you just run through some of your titles and just let us know really what they mean?
Absolutely. I'm a senatrix, which means I'm in the Senate. I've been a long-term citizen since 2003, I believe it is, and I made my way up the cursus honorum to become a senator. I'm a woman, so in Latin that's senatrix, with that trix ending. And my other positions that I'm particularly proud of, I'm the Flaminica Carmentalis, and that means I have a lifelong priesthood to the goddess Carmenta, and I serve her. And that means I'm also in the Collegium Pontificum, where we discuss religious law. And currently, my position is I'm the idealis plebis, which means that the plebeian ideals are in charge of the games and moderating the various fora in Nova Roma. So that's everything for now. There are more things,
Great.
but
And so your name is very long. I think it's one of the longest names. How did you how did you come up with such a name?
oh gosh, if you look at my entry in Nova Roma, Lentulus wrote it, and it's sort of he discusses my name because in the days that I joined Nova Roma, we had really a small idea about Roman nomenclature, uh, onomastics, Roman naming practices, and at that time, Quintilianus, who was the censor, got together a cohort, and we started doing research into proper Roman naming. And I found out that the first gens I belonged to, Fabia Vera, that there's no such thing as two name gens, so I had to leave that. Then I joined another gens Arminia, named after Arminius of Germany. Turns out, of course, there's no Roman gens Arminia. It's ahistorical, so that was gone. And finally, I decided I start my own gens, and Hortensia is a very, very famous Roman woman who was famous for defying the taxation of women. So I thought this was ideal. Her father was a famous lawyer. I was a lawyer, so it seemed like a natural thing, and that was the start. And the Fabiana Faustina is from my previous name because I was Septima Fabia Vera Fausta. So I put it on the end, so there's like a continuation.
Do you hold the record for the longest name?
I think so, maybe. And then I found out I had a cognomen Fausta and that seemed great. In my various names, it turned out that I made someone my father when it wasn't. I had a friend. It turned out that would make him my brother. It was all very complicated. And Fausta was interesting because it was my cognomen. And in research, I found out that was a slave cognomen, whereas Faustina was for citizens, upper class people. So I had to change that too. So it was really interesting. I learned a lot. It was wonderful.
Nice.
That's the great thing about Nova Roma. When you're working in a cohort or something like that, you do so much research and you learn so much, and you get to apply it to yourself. So it's really exciting. It's not just theoretical. I loved it.
Nice. And speaking of Nova Roma, how did you first hear about the organization?
It's really interesting. I was living in Ireland at the time, around 2002 maybe, and like many people, I'd read Kelly McCullough's First Man in Rome series and loved it, and thought I'm going to write a Roman mystery. How original is that? And I started to do some research on the internet, and I found Nova Roma, and I thought, ooh, this is great. It should be fun. Give me some ideas. And I didn't write the mystery, but I joined Nova Roma and never looked back. It's wonderful.
Nice. And I do see in the album, I don't know how to pronounce it, Civium?
I'll help you. Kivium,
Kivium.
Kivium.
Yeah. That you've been a citizen since 2003. So not too long. I believe the founding was in 1999.
98, I think.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I joined pretty early. I mean, there were people who were older citizens than I am, but yeah, it was wonderful. There were so many citizens then, especially from all over Europe because of the Colleen McCullough series. So many people had read it and then joined Nova Roma because of it. It was wonderful.
and just to let you know, in the chat, a few people have
Mhm.
written, including Marca Hortensia Marina. Apparently, she says that your name is not as long as hers because she thinks hers is the longest. And
She's my
another
adopted daughter, so she's right.
and another contributor with the screen name Squish Chin wrote, "I had a grand aunt named Faustina with an O. I wonder if that name is connected." And yeah,
Sure, it's an ancient name. There was some Faustina, absolutely. There was some I think 19th, 18th century Polish woman who became a saint, and she was a Faustina, so it became popular a little.
and also on the album Civium.
Kivium,
Oh,
Kivium.
sorry, Kivium.
Okay, don't worry. I'm a Latin
Yeah,
teacher. It makes me happy to help.
exactly. Well, we are going to get into your Latin classes
Mhm,
in a bit.
mhm.
Um, you had you have quite the civil service record, I do have to say. I mean, if you look at the roles like pay sorry, I'm not going to pronounce them,
It's
but
okay. Don't worry. This is actually something that's very important and near and dear to me. I
yeah,
don't want anyone to feel embarrassed or worried about not being able to know how to pronounce something in Latin. I'm here to help. So I didn't know how to pronounce them either before I started. So it's just fine.
sure. I noticed that you've had so many different roles in Nova Roma, but one role is missing, and I don't see console on there. So, do you think that, maybe sometime sooner or later that might be an addition?
Yes, yes, it's my duty. I'm not really a fan of politics personally. I'm much more interested in doing research, and I'm interested in the Religio Romana. I help train the priests, but it's my duty as a Roman. So absolutely, and I hope to be a Kensir one day because they're involved with naming citizens, and that's something I have so much experience with. Gosh.
And I also read
Mhm,
recently, I believe it was on the main list
mhm.
because there was a new citizen, and the new citizen offered to help, with other new citizens. But Scholastica said that one important role uh, is to be able to not only speak Latin but really understand like Latin names. And I mean that's essential when enrolling new people.
Well, you can have someone help you. I mean, in the Kenser's office, you could have someone assist you and say, "Hey, please get the mail and organize it, and then give it to me." To work there with names, yeah, you have to have an understanding of Roman naming practices, what's historical, what's permitted, how you can help people. Yeah, but you can have people to help you who are untrained and who can do other things, and that's how you start learning. I knew nothing about onomastics when I started out in Quintilianus's cohort. I learned a lot.
Sure.
That's the fun of Nova Roma.
The,
It's just not a dry scholarly thing. We use all these things we learn.
I do have to say, a few people in the chat noticed that there is a bit of a lag in the video, and unfortunately, due to Wi-Fi
I'm in
issues,
Turkey on Wi-Fi. I'm
yeah,
sorry. I'm sorry, everybody. This is just the way it is. You're just going to have to bear with me.
exactly. So, I mean, hopefully the buffering issues or what have you is only for a few seconds, and that you could really understand like the thrust of the answers or the questions. And if not, just write in the chat, and we could repeat.
Absolutely. We can repeat things. Don't worry about it.
So there's um, one thing I really was intrigued when I was reading about you, and is your academic background. And you're one of the well-known Latin speakers in Nova Roma. So I'm wondering how you got into studying Latin in the first place.
Well, first, let me just say I'm not really a Latin speaker yet. I have to work on it. I'm not. I'm sort of a tyro. Sadly, in university, they don't teach you to speak Latin, so that's something I hope to go on a Latin week this summer. But as for Latin, I was always interested in classics for a long time back, and in high school, I almost took Latin, but I'd have to be behind. And then it turned out the Latin teacher was Russian, so I organized a Russian class. So I didn't learn Latin then, and I was always kind of angry about not doing it. And then when I went into exile in 2010, when Sulla came, I went to I enrolled in UNC and took a classics degree, a second BA. So, and
Nice.
I've written a Harry Potter fan fiction in Latin. I'm very interested in Latin pedagogy and want to make it fun and interesting for people, instead of scary and hard.
How many years have you been learning Latin, or
Well,
also self-taught? And yeah.
well, in 2005, I took an online Latin course and for speaking Latin, but I didn't know any Latin, and it was really impossible for me to really proceed. I need a more formal sort of background. I'm good at grammar. I need to know all those things. And the problem with Latin learning is that there's no like immersion. You can't go to a Latin country and speak Latin. I'm here in Turkey, and yeah, I'm in an immersion situation, and I'm learning, Turkish every single day, just by osmosis. We don't have that with Latin, so it's a lot harder. Um, Another hard language is Russian, but yeah, there's Russian TV, there's Russian movies, all kinds of things that can help you in a natural environment learn Russian. And this is why Latin is hard to learn, because there's not all this media available. There's more today than when I started, but it's hard.
I've even read online that sometimes they have like Latin boot camps. You go somewhere for a week on immersion, but then I've also heard that a lot of people who study Latin study um, just to translate back and forth, but not actually to speak it in conversation. Um,
Exactly.
so so have you had conversations in Latin, or for you is it more just translating
When
back
I
and
went
forth?
to the University of North Carolina and took my classics degree there in 2015, their famous classics department, uh, everything I did, I mean, I read the parts of the Aeneid, uh, Lucretius, Cicero, you name it. All it was passive Latin reading and translation into English. There was nothing about thinking in Latin, speaking in Latin, zero. So that's come from other people. Now things are different. There's Daniel Pedersen at in Stockholm at the University of Sweden, and he gives he's teaching Latin. He's also teaching his students to speak it. So things are changing, which is wonderful.
Great. And it's a good segue into your Latin class. I believe
Oh,
that,
mhm.
so I've seen a few of the messages. So I believe it's starting next week or so.
Next Sunday, I have two classes, one in the morning, Sunday morning, and one in the afternoon. I have American and European students, and they're going to tune in when it's convenient for them.
And how are the classes and the assignments organized?
Oh, it's very easy. I've done this before. I use freeconferencecall.com. Decimus Aurelius Ingeniarius told me about it, and it's a wonderful platform. So what I'll do is typically my class will spend maybe the first 15 minutes teaching Latin conversation. So you can introduce yourself, say, what's your name, how are you feeling, where do you live, things like that, to start it out gently. And then I'll discuss the grammar of the lesson so people can understand the mechanics of Latin. It's really important. And then I'll ask them some questions in Latin about the chapter. We use Lingua Latina per se illustrata Familia Romana. This was a great pioneering work by Oberg in the 1960s, I think. He wrote this book. It's totally Latin, teaching Latin with pictures. So anyone from any country can use this book to learn Latin. It's not perfect. It needs grammar supplementation, but that's generally what my class is like. And there's homework, which because it's voluntary class, people don't have to do it, but it will help them, and I correct
And today, so when people learn Latin, either at the university or through your courses,
it.
um, what type of Latin is it? Because obviously the Latin language has evolved through the years. So is it more focusing on Cicero's time or Virgil's time, or is there kind of a standard?
Well, the Urberg work is very clever because he tells a story, a simple story about a Roman family, and uses a lot of vocabulary that you'll need for classical literature. So that's fantastic. That's all written in New Latin. I mean, if you did a course with Wheelock, he'll give you these little sentences which are snippets from classical authors, and I found it very hard because there was you didn't have something like a full sentence to figure things out if it were a little difficult. So the Urberg will give you the vocabulary you need to read classical Latin, and then I supplement in conversation with modern words, things like that. There's a dictionary now, an online dictionary of modern Latin called the Neo-Latin Lexicon, which is all kinds of words for like dishwasher, so you can talk about your everyday life. It's fantastic.
Oh, nice. We do have a few messages in the chat that I just want to quickly get to.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, Squish Chin. Like I said, I don't know the Roman name. They
Write
wrote,
your Roman name, people, when you write your messages, please.
the person wrote, I missed out on taking Latin in high school. I actually had the option in high school, and um, I either had to take French, Spanish, or Latin. And
Yeah,
the only people that took Latin really um, were the people that wanted to get into a good university, and they thought that if they learn a whole language from 2,000 years ago, they could get a better SAT score, which is a standardized score to get into college.
that's
And
absolutely true.
I thought it's quite difficult to completely learn a language, and let alone for one standardized test. I don't know. I thought it
I'll
was
explain
quite.
something to you why it's a very clever thing. When I was I went to because I had written, I was writing a Latin book, and I went to high school Latin conference in Las Vegas around 2011, 12 maybe, and all the top students were there. And the reason why, a lot of them were immigrants too, very clever, is that 90% of two-syllable or more English words come from Latin. So if you learn some Latin on your SATs, when I had taught Latin, I did teach Latin in a regular US high school for a couple of months. when I was just going through simple sentences like tree in Latin is arbor, and I'd say to them, look at this for your SATs, arboreal. If you don't have to know what it means, look where it comes from, arboreal. All these words come from Latin, and it makes it a lot easier. And also, if you learn something like 20 Latin prefixes and suffixes, you can increase your English vocabulary by 10,000 words.
Wow. It reminds me, I was reading,
Mhm.
I'm not sure who it was, but I believe it
Yeah.
was a 19th century English author, and he
Hmm.
used the word testudial. So
Yes.
like a testudo, but as an adjective. And I was like, wow, I've never seen that before.
Isn't it fun when you see something like that? I love things like that. It's
Yeah,
just such a treat. I mean, even things that are everyday for, let's say, Americans, with Latin, you understand them. Like when the president gets inaugurated, that comes from augurs. Augurs taking auguries. I mean,
I didn't
who
know
thinks
that.
of that?
I didn't realize that.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
But thankfully nobody, checks the entrails during the inaugurations. Um, we have quite we have quite a number of contributions. Let me get to a few of them in the chat.
Wonderful. Hmm.
Um, Squishchin also wrote the Western Classical School in Paris, Tennessee is educating children in spoken Latin, almost raising native Latin speakers. Lentulus, who is also one of the great Latin speakers in Nova Roma, he said, learning Latin is one of the most important steps toward Roman revival.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and Pharaoh Crab wrote, "Do I have to sign up for the class somewhere, or do I just attend?"
No,
Um,
no, you need to come to the Discord. There's
so it's not
there
too late.
Yeah, no, it's not too late. Anyone who wants to join, go to the Discord, please, or you can even email me or write to me on Facebook if you like. But the Discord is best. Go to the Canales Latinitatis and say you want to join the Latin class. There are two times, 9 o'clock on Sunday or 7 p.m. on Sunday. So either one is fine.
Great. So the next question is your classical background, not Latin, but
Yeah.
your classics. How did you get interested in ancient history, and what led you to study that?
Uh, I was a little girl and I went to a Waldorf school. There, it's a progressive school, and my sister came home. She was in the fifth grade. I was in the second, third grade, and she came home with a book on Greek myths. She was studying them for her classes, and I took that book and I just fell in love with it. It was Dolere's Greek myths, and I just fell in love with the classical world. And then I moved to another school, and in the fifth grade we studied ancient Greece and Rome, and that was it for me. I was just enamored of classical civilization. It was the start of a lifelong love. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. When I went to college, I went to Harvard as an undergraduate, and I should have studied classics. A friend of mine invited me to luncheon, and we went to. I sat next to him, lectured Professor Gregory Nage, who is a famous course on heroes in the classical world. I adored it. He said you should switch, but I was in an honors major, and I didn't want to take Latin one. So, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did.
and so when you were younger, which of those myths really like spoke to you?
Mm. I love the ones about Apollo, when Apollo and Daphne. I thought those were fabulous. I loved the Iliad much more than the Odyssey. It was really interesting. I was just enamored of the whole Iliad. It was fantastic. There were, and there still are. You can get them on Google Books for free. There are versions for children, and that's what I read at a young age, and that just gave me such a love. And then later on, I prefer the Fitzgerald translations. And then when I was at UNC, again, I took a course on classical literature, so I got to read it again for fun. It was great.
I actually have the Fitzgerald translation for the Aeneid,
Mhm,
and one of the reasons why I'm interested in ancient Roman history was because of an honors class that I took
mhm.
in college, and we read the Aeneid. And it's also interesting because in Latin, the first line was so well known that you would find it all over, um, etched in houses and graffiti.
Mhm.
But if you look at the first line in English, there's so many different ways to translate it. Um, it goes along the lines of "Men on arms I sing," but
Yeah.
it's really interesting, like how modern day, like, I don't know, there's so many different versions, and you could easily spot, is that the version you read, or is that a different one?
Mhm.
So,
It's funny. We all have our favorites, and Lattimore was famous for being very literal with Greek translations, and it just feels very dry to me. I like the spirit more, which Fitzgerald has. Uh, Talking about the first line of the Aeneid, there was a very funny article out recently about uh, Latin culture and funny things and graffiti and all that. And gosh, I forgot where I read it, but one of the things was that there was a graffiti in Pompeii at a fellow who was a dry cleaner, a fulo, and it said of fulo. I sing of dry cleaners. He wrote this graffiti in his office, and in Nova Roma right now we have a citizen, Duilius Fulo, who's a fulo, and I told him about this, and he just loved it. I mean, it's so wonderful that something ancient from so long ago resounds now. I mean, people make jokes about classics and all that. It's tremendous, and you have to remember that in the West, until the 1960s, everybody, every educated person had a classical education. So all these things would be, everybody would know about the Aeneid, the Iliad, and all these things. It was the sine qua non. So that's changed a lot, I think, for the worse, but it's coming back. I mean, as you were saying, children are being taught the classics again in Latin and all that for literacy, for general knowledge. It's wonderful. I'm all for
of course.
it.
And so among the among your titles that you spoke about was also a religious one. So could you just briefly speak about, so how you became involved in the Roman religion?
Absolutely, I'm happy to. Years ago, I was involved in witchcraft. I was interested in paganism, but there really wasn't much. And in the late 70s, there was a book about witchcraft, drawing down the moon. So that really interested me. I was involved with it some years, but something was lacking. And I was looking around, and then when I found Nova Roma and I saw that there was this whole revival of the Religio Romana, that to me was just the most wonderful thing because it gave me a whole basis as a culture. I mean, I love Roman culture. For many people who feel alienated from maybe their background culture, I mean, or just generally, and then the Flaminica Carmentalis. I have this argument with Lentulus because the Flamens, there were like 15. It was a married priesthood, and the male was called the Flamen, and the woman was called a Flaminica. So I like to call myself, because I'm a woman, the Flaminica Carmentalis, and Lentulus is like, no, you're the Flamen. But either way, it's a priesthood, a lifelong priesthood that's dedicated to one deity, and my deity is Carmenta, who's a deity of divination and childbirth. And that's why uh, there's only vegetarian sacrifice for Carmenta because there's a blood taboo because of birth. And you can't wear any leather or anything from animals when you sacrifice. So her feria is in January, and I was in Poltava at the time, and there I was outside without any shoes, and I just had my linen toga on, to sacrifice. But that's the way it should be. I'm a Roman.
And I actually remember seeing you sacrifice without any shoes. What is the significance of that? And also, where in ancient literature could one read about that?
The significance is that because Carmente is a childbirth deity, you don't want anything to do with death connected with her, because it would be bad because all the women who were going to give birth in Rome would go to her temple. So it was there's a taboo on blood and sacrifice. So leather, is dead animal skin. You can't wear it. I mean, it would be very Roman of me to be very clever and say, well, I won't wear leather shoes, but I'll wear like plastic ones because, it doesn't come from an animal. And it's a very Roman attitude, but I was very hardcore, so I don't. I go in bare feet, and that's the way it is for me. Um,
Did you also did you walk to the altar bare feet, or did you just take your shoes off right before
I,
performing?
I took my shoes off before the altar, but when I performed this sacrifice when I lived in Chapel Hill, I would take my shoes off and then walk over the grass because I did it in this little forest behind my house, and I would use a tree stump altar, and I'd walk on the grass or snow in the cold, and do it.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And did some people witness these ceremonies that are not involved in Nova Roma, or did you do normally these ceremonies in the U.S. alone?
Well, I had what I call the Temple of Carmenta. Before that, it was the Grove of Bulgaria, and it was open to the public in at Chapel Hill. Meaning, anyone who was interested could come. I would every Sunday I would perform a ceremony. If people came or not, I would do it and sacrifice and give a talk. It was quite funny because for a place that had such a famous classical faculty, the students were really not interested in sort of living the Romanitas in any way, whether it was in Religio Romana, whether I was writing a play, I wanted them to act a Latin play, they weren't interested. It was just it was kind of depressing, actually. Thank God for Nova Roma. Mhm.
And another thing I'm wondering is,
Mhm.
what's the process to be a flamen or flamenca today?
Oh, oh, sure. I'm happy to tell you. That's a higher religious post. Normally, when you want to be involved in the religio and have a post, you apply in the program for the camillus. A camillus is like a trainee priest, and Lentulus and I uh, are, run the camillus training. So I've I'm doing that right now. What I do is we read texts, scholarly texts like Mary Beard. I assign that on Roman religion, so the prospective priests have an understanding of how it fits and the circumstances, and more books. And then there's practical training, and they have to perform their rituals in Latin. You don't at the sacerdoce level, you don't have to learn Latin, but you have to be able to perform rituals in it. We help them with that, and then if you want to become a flamen or a pontiff, something higher up, you have to know Latin. You're just because we're in the Collegium Pontificum, which uh, discusses Latin law and Latin religious law in Latin. You have to be able to. Augurs too need to pass a Latin test, so it's imperative.
If I hear correctly in the background, it's a
Yeah,
Muslim call to prayer for sunset at
yeah,
sunset, right?
yeah. Well, sunset happened a while ago. Yeah, it
Well,
is.
I believe they
I
have like 5 calls to prayer during the day,
yeah.
but
Oh yeah, 6 a.m. They're calling you to prayer.
yeah,
Sorry.
Lentulus wrote the Muezzin is incredible. Does it wake you up?
It did when I first got here. I was like, I was just so tired from wandering. I mean, I've gone through like something like 6, 7 countries, and I would just lay there, and then I'd hear because it's on a PA system, so it's really loud, and yeah, it would wake me up. But now, no.
Yeah, I remember the first time I've visited Istanbul. I had a hotel very close to a mosque. I think if I left the hotel, I would be at the mosque in about 30 seconds,
Uh-huh.
and it was incredibly loud. It was, and I mean, no offense, but it was just blaring into the hotel, and it would interrupt your conversations. It was so loud, and
Oh yeah. I'm
yeah,
I'm up on like a cliff, and the mosque is down, at the bottom of the hill where the town is. So if you can hear it, that's how loud it is. Because yeah, in the old days, the muezzin would just be up there and just be calling, but now it's all amplified, and that's what makes it a bit intrusive. I'm being
okay.
polite. Mhm.
So to go back, I'm wondering what sort of books have you used to research and to do research into like the ancient Roman history and um, but not the history, sort of the religious side, and also practices and different um, so and different things to say during a ritual. So like, what are some of the resources you've used?
Oh well, I was very fortunate at the time to live right next to UNC has a superb classics library, famous, and it's also a copyright library, so they get copies of all the new books. It's wonderful. And then there's Duke, if there was something that wasn't there, though that was very rare. Yeah, there are a lot of books on Roman religion, and I've read, I'd say, about 100
Oh wow.
easily. That's 20 years. I started this. I was very interested when I joined Nova Roma. You would normally start reading basic books, maybe Introduction to Roman Religion, Robert Turkin's famous Mary Beard's 2-volume series, which I know you've read, is excellent, and that's a great place to start and
It's
understand.
actually a source book, and I believe she wrote it in the 70s or 80s, so quite a long time ago, and it's not that expensive, and it's interesting to find specific examples of so many different topics. And what is also helpful is that if you have, um, for instance, a Kindle or an online reading device, you could actually use a search function and find exactly what you're looking for.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, I have the paper ones. Well, they're in storage right now, but yeah, when that book came out, that was just mind blowing. It was later than that. It was like the 90s, I believe.
Oh, 90s? Oh, I thought it
Yeah. No, no.
definitely earlier than some of the more recent ones, because she's become quite famous.
Mhm.
And for instance, her SPQR book from I don't know how many years ago, 6 years
Yeah.
ago, let's say, that really, I don't know, made her almost a household name in a way. But yeah, I thought it was a little bit older, but that's fine.
No,
Um,
it was important because when I remember I started reading books for the Religio, John Sheed was like the first book, and we were all thrilled. Oh, what a great book! It was small, but his whole point was that he was looking at Roman religion from the point of view of like Romans, and not there was a lot of until the mid 20th century. You'd get these books written by scholars, and they'd say, isn't it amazing how these brilliant Romans would, believe this nonsense like augury or worship gods? There was such a religious bias, and modern trends in understanding religion have changed that, saying that we shouldn't have that attitude. We should look at it from the point of view of how Romans would view their own religion. And John Sheed was the first, and it was dated. He got some things wrong. He felt women could sacrifice, which was totally wrong. And then Mary Beard and John North wrote their excellent 2-volume work, and that's like a classic. It's so good. And then they're like There are a million other books. I mean, I've read so many books on various cults written in French, Italian. Uh, I read about augury, and of course, my own Carmenta. Ovid wrote about her. So there's a lot of material available. It's not hard to get. You just have to make the effort.
And you actually sent me the link earlier this week. There is a reading list for the Cultus Deorum on the Nova Roma site. Um, and yeah, one could just easily find that and probably and be overwhelmed with the amount of resources
Oh,
that
I helped write that list. I did most of it. And I'm telling you, that needs to be updated because I went into exile in 2010 and we really didn't get the wiki back. I mean, I came back in, I think, 1819, and the wiki is just, it's being updated, but it needs work. I need to put in more modern books as well because there's so much material now. Jörg Rübke is wonderful, and he has written a lot of great books on Roman religion.
speaking of the wiki, I'm not exactly sure how to call it, but on the Nova Roma site, they have different pages and like a style similar to Wikipedia. And you've
Mhm.
actually written many different articles. How much how much time and effort did you put into those? Because it's quite a there's quite a number that you're the author or at least one of the authors.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of them have been added to later, and I'm sorry to say, like, as by Agricola, Equidius, Cato, and they just added things that were sort of not historical or it was just from literature. It wasn't top research. What I'd done was when I was doing my reading back then, if I'd read any kind of a book on the Religio Romana, the wiki was there and I put notes there. So all my articles were really notes for myself, but also for me sharing them with other people. So while I was reading a book, if I were reading about the cult of Apollo in Rome, I would make notes and links and write a wiki article. And that I think is the great thing about the wiki because you're you're getting I'm having this experience and learning, but because of the wiki, I'm able to make quick notes there and share what I've learned with other people. And that to me is the great thing of the wiki. And it should all be documented well. The wiki should be scholarly. Some of the articles are just kind of I have to go back and fix them and clean them up. But yeah.
Yeah, but it looks like you definitely back back in the day, you put a lot of time and effort into it.
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah. It was my pleasure. I love doing the reading, and instead of losing all that information, uh, there it is to help other people. I mean, maybe you don't speak French, and read that big tome I read on Apollo, and there are enough notes there for you and pictures so you can enjoy it and learn about his cultus and other things as well. I mean, other deities. It made me really happy. It makes me happy now. I'm a teacher by nature, even though I have a law degree, and I like sharing knowledge. It's a wonderful thing.
Definitely, and it also highlights one aspect of Nova Roma. It's not, what does Nova Roma do for you? It's how you can contribute. I mean,
Yes.
people there's not any paid positions in Nova Roma, and sometimes it's like, well, there's why isn't there any events near me? And the question is, well, have you tried to organize it? Or, um, it's very, very much in the sense that, you 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 get out what you put into it.
I agree 100%. Everything I've done for Nova Roma has, I don't want to say paid me back, even though that's the idiomatic expression, because it sounds like, it's some kind of harsh exchange. But every amount of time that I've devoted to Nova Roma, I've received so much more in terms of the wonderful. It's so hard to put sometimes. I mean, I know how it is in terms of belonging to a culture, a shared culture that I can share with others. So it's a wonderful experience. I love sharing it. I've made wonderful, wonderful friends in Nova Roma because of it. And so to help other citizens it's a wonderful thing.
And I'm wondering, before you went to Ukraine,
Mhm.
how many other Nova Roma citizens have you met in person knowingly?
Mm. Knowingly, like
Well,
we're
no,
wondering.
because
Yeah, no,
I
it's
say
like,
that I've been to military reenactment events, and I've spoken to some of the soldiers, but I didn't ask them if they were Nova Roma or not. Maybe some
oh,
are, so
yeah.
that's why I'm saying like knowingly.
Yeah. When I lived in Ireland, I was the governor there. I started the province. So I met a bunch of Nova Romans there. I knew a lot of the Spaniards on the internet. Unfortunately, at the time when I was in Ireland, I was going to go to a lot of meetings. This was back in 2004, but I got ill, so I couldn't. And then I moved back to America. And yeah, there weren't a lot of Nova Romans in North Carolina where I lived. Though you were there, I don't know how we didn't meet. And there was a big meeting in Nashville, and we all got, and a bunch of us got together. I met Tulia Scholastica there, and Regulus, and Paiskinus, who was the head of the Collegium Pontificum then. It was a wonderful experience. And before that, I helped organize a meeting in New York City in 2004. So a bunch of us got together then. That was wonderful as well. I think it was about 10 maybe,
Oh, wow.
something like
In Nashville, did you go inside the copy of the Parthenon?
that. Oh God, yes. And I always, when I heard about it, I'm like, ugh, this kind
Disney
of,
World.
yeah, I thought it was kind of, kind of, I don't want to say naff, but kind of tacky. And then I went there and went inside, and it was amazing. I felt like I was sort of like an ancient pilgrim, because they did make pilgrimages to temples. It was a hugely affecting experience, and I didn't expect that at all. So it was really tremendous. It was definitely a religious experience for me. It was unforgettable.
Were you impressed by the cult statue inside?
Yes, yes. I'd seen pictures of it before, and I really didn't, as I told you, I really didn't think much about it. I thought it looked kind of cheap or whatever. And my experience of going there was entirely different. And
Now,
yeah, I'd never seen a statue that big. That was incredible.
yeah, so I mean, obviously in museums these days, you could see some smaller statues or maybe like a huge head of an
Yeah,
emperor or but
yeah.
complete statues of that size really,
It
really
blew
doesn't
me away.
survive. But
It was an amazing experience, and I urge anyone who can go to go. It was fantastic.
have you ever been to the Archaeological Museum in Athens? Because they have a small version about this tall of that exact statue. But it was carved in Roman times, so I'm not sure which century, but
Mhm.
it's like the best depiction of the statue from the Parthenon.
Oh gosh, I probably did. I've been to Athens, and I made a whole tour of archaeological sites, but it was, oh gosh, it was a long time ago, maybe 2007. So I don't really remember that
Oh.
exactly.
So where are some other of the uh, some of the other Roman ruins and museums that you've been to across the world, and which are some of your favorites?
Let's see. Oh gosh, I love Bath. I thought that was tremendous. That's amazing. Aquin- I've been to Aquincum. In fact, I stayed with two Nova Romans. I stayed with Gnaeus Lentulus and Popilia, and I also stayed with the Nova Roman at the time, Livia Plauta, and that was a wonderful experience. I mean, I will never get over going to the Sicily Baths with Lentulus, and we were speaking Latin in them. That was like the ultimate experience, just the best. We were outdoors in these glamorous baths, Oh, it's divine.
And the museum there in Aquincum is also very nice.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful. But that's what I remember. I mean, I love going to archaeological sites. I love visiting museums. I think that my memories are based on experiences I've had with others in terms of living Romanitas. I mean, to me, it's just amazing to be able to do it. I feel so absolutely fortunate and privileged to be able to be part of this. It's enriched my life so much, and I know I've spoken to others; they feel the same way.
Lentulus actually just wrote in the chat that we had 2 great weeks hosting Hortensia. Wow, 2 weeks. That's
Hmm. Oh
very
yeah,
interesting.
I did a long time. I was working on my book then. At the time, I'd had a lot of problems learning Latin, and I was thinking very deeply about why, because I'm very good at languages. I learned French, Italian, Russian, some Japanese, and it wasn't hard. So why was Latin so hard? And I decided to write a book about conversational Latin. I was staying with Lentulus, who was writing a lot of the grammar, and so it was work and pleasure. It was fantastic.
And now, so the book that you mentioned is that I'm not sure how to pronounce it. The Vox.
Vox populi, or you could say vox. I mean, the Romans pronounced V as W, but late Latin also pronounced that V as V. So it's up to you. Uh, I use V because I had a tutor for Latin, a conversation tutor, and he said V. He went to Academia Vivarium Novum, and that's how he spoke. So that's how I do it. It's Vox Populi. And if anyone's interested, I had a website, but I took it down when I moved to Poltava. I was going to have a new one. And so it's not anywhere, but if you want a copy, it's like 500 pages, 24 dialogues, modern ones. And it's $10, and DM me or send me an email, and if you want to buy it, just buy it and I'll send you a copy.
Great.
Mhm.
Lentulus just continued in the chat that you brought a box of coffee then, which you left there, and he said we still want to find which it was. It was the best coffee ever. And then she said that he said she bought it in a shop nearby, but we forgot the brand. LOL.
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, it was the best coffee ever. I have to visit Quincum. I'm not going to stay with you, Lentulus, and I'll get the coffee for you. I promise. That he and Popilia were wonderful hosts. It was See, this is what I'm talking about when I love Nova Roma so much. Not only the intellectual enrichment, but the deep friendships with people who are totally interested and enamored of what you are. So my friendships aren't, superficial. They're deep and last for, decades. And that is also a wonderful thing in our modern culture where people are very superficial. I lived in Chapel Hill for years, and honestly, I felt more alone there than I do here in Turkey, where I don't speak Turkish, but my friends are nearby, talking to you. It's wonderful. Oh, I have really nice Russian neighbors, so they're great.
Nice. Now, another thing that comes to mind is the podcast that you did some time ago. It also it also had the same name, correct?
Well, yeah, that was like I named it Vox Romana Podcast, the Roman Voice. And this is the other great thing. I know I go on about Nova Roma, but I'm older. I mean, when I joined Nova Roma, I was in my 40s, and I had young friends in Nova Roma in their 20s and 30s, and they were all involved in IT, and they would tell me about the latest things. And this Saturninus, Gaius Curius Saturninus of Helsinki, was saying, we should have a podcast, and Asta was involved. I'm like, what's podcasting? And they explained it to me, and there I was, podcasting. And so I formed a group and wrote some of the scripts. It would be like news, where we talk about news from Nova Roma. We read. It was a wonderful experience. I loved it, and now we have Twitch, which to me is fantastic too. And that's the great thing about Nova Roma, where you learn how to do all these things because there's so many interesting people who are very generous and share their knowledge.
Definitely. Like I said at the beginning with Ingeniarius, he took 3 hours out of his day, and when we talked, it was 7 a.m.
Yeah,
in so Rome time. I have no idea what time it was in Australia, but I'm assuming that
late.
he got up way too early on a work day to help me with or to help me with like the IT aspects for 3 hours. I mean, not too many people have the dedication, to help
No,
you like
he's
that.
wonderful. He's a pretty new citizen, but he's so dedicated and does so much. I mean, my other friend, Artorius Praeconinus, also he's very dedicated on the IT. And then my dear friend Tiberius Julius Nerva in Marcomania, he was one of the people who helped me be able to evacuate. I mean, it's not just minor things being part of Nova Roma. It's a very deep experience, and I'm very grateful to all the people who've helped me. And Artorius hosted me. I stayed with him in Germany. And I mean, sad experiences can result in wonderful tightening of friendships, and that's the other beautiful thing about Nova Roma.
Uh, Tiberius Julius Nerva just wrote "Salvete omnes" in the chat.
He is a wonderful person, my dear, dear friend. We talk all the time. And this is like another experience when I was in Prague because I was evacuated. He had helped organize and made sure that he had a friend who uh, who called and found someone to drive through 4 countries to pick us up at the border. And then his friend put us up. And then I was able to see Nerva in the flesh. And that's the very interesting thing about Nova Roma, where you could have friends, that you chat with online like this, or a video chat, and then when you see them in real life, it's great, but they're no different. I mean, that's the wonderful thing because it's not superficial.
That's very
So
true. Now,
yeah, yeah, it was a wonderful experience, and you also were so kind, and wanted me to visit you in Munich. So it was tremendous. You were so helpful. It's just it's really heartwarming.
well, I mean, thank you for the. I mean, I didn't contribute that much, but I definitely talk with you on numerous occasions. I also donated money to the Corby family as well,
That was a
on
wonderful thing to do.
two
Wonderful.
different
Nova Romans were really
occasions,
very generous and kind.
definitely. Um, Now I'm wondering. So, with the whole conventions, I know that in the past there were some U.S. conventions and also some European conventions. How many did you attend? And what do you think about reviving the conventions in the future to get like a bunch of Nova Romans together that are in different provinces or countries or even continents?
Oh, I'm all for it. When I lived in Ireland, I was going to go to the Conventus in Italy. It sounded fantastic. And I got sick. I was in the hospital actually. So I couldn't make it. And I heard all about it. It sounded just so great. And then when I was in the US, it wasn't an official Conventus, the one in Nashville, but quite a few people were there. The one in New York City, quite a few people that were there. It wasn't a Conventus. There was one down in South Carolina that I couldn't make because I was going to go to Europe, to Hungary and all that, and see everyone. So I haven't been to official Conventuses. I'm hoping in the spring to go to Aquincum, Hungary, and visit maybe Marcomania. We'll see. And what I really like to do over the summer is go for a Latin week if they're allowing, in person experiences to 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 work on my conversational Latin because I need to. I want to.
Nice.
It's so funny.
Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that for some people, they really say it's a complete dead language. So it's interesting for me that for some people, it's it's really a living language. But I would say uh, I don't know. Most people don't understand it these days. For instance, when I'm talking to, for instance, my boss about going
Mhm.
to a Roman ruin, he doesn't understand it. He's like, "But who cares? Like who cares? It's just a bunch of stones. They're all dead. Like who
Oh,
cares?"
oh gosh. This is why you have Nova Roman friends because yeah. It When I was in the classics department at UNC, as I told you, I was writing a Latin play. I'm like saying to the students, let's make a movie. We can do this. I'm very creative. No one was interested. I'm like, you're studying Greek, and Latin literature. How could you not be interested in doing something like this? They weren't. They weren't interested. I really couldn't talk about Nova Roma because Sulla was there at the time, so I didn't want to encourage that. But I talked about it in the past, and they couldn't be more indifferent. It's an attitude some people have, and if they want to watch the latest show on TV or think about things like that, that's their choice. Not mine, not yours. I love the past, and the past to me enriches my present. There's so much wisdom. I mean, you read Seneca. You can see the real difference. This is very important for me to say with COVID. When COVID began I knew about it in January of 220 because I had a lot of students in China and they were telling me about it. So I wasn't surprised by it. But a lot of people where I lived just fell apart during COVID. They couldn't cope. They were depressed. They were miserable. And, I was fine. I'd lived through a lot of things in New York City and other things as well. But my friends who were steeped in Stoic thought or the classics, they were able to deal with it. Because we had the material to understand the world, and I think that was incredibly important. And I actually visited. I used to practice Buddhism years ago, and I visited the Buddhist forums to see how they were coping with it because I was really very interested if Buddhist philosophy was helping, and it wasn't at all. They just fallen apart. So I feel also that the COVID and Nova Romans being able to deal with it, get on with their lives, do what was necessary. Where Romans are very practical and pragmatic, showed the efficacy and why it's so worthwhile to understand and not live in the past. I don't live in the past, but why the past is valuable and enriches the present. It's an inheritance that we can accept or not accept, and I think it's one that enriches us.
Definitely. My last question about Latin,
Yeah.
and in terms of difficulty, how does it rank with the other languages that you could speak? Because I believe you could speak about 6 different languages. So
Yes.
is it definitely by far the hardest or minimally harder than some of the other languages?
I would say it's on a level with Russian, uh, but I think Russian is harder than Latin. But Latin was harder for me to learn, so that was a conundrum for me, and I really thought about it quite a bit. And Russian is hard to speak in that they have like 3 or 4 different kinds of E. I mean, that kind of thing. And when you speak a certain word, there's something called vowel reduction, so the vowels change their sound. That's complex. It doesn't happen in Latin at all. So why was Russian easier for me than Latin to learn? Because Russian is spoken and there's lots of materials around. You can watch Russian movies, talk to Russians. We don't have that with Latin. And it's changing enormously, and that's a wonderful thing. There are all these wonderful Latin teachers who are sharing materials. If you go to YouTube, there's Daniel Pedersen of Latinitium. He's a professor in Stockholm. There's Irene Regini of Satura Lanx down in Italy. She's fantastic too. There's Luca Ranieri of Scorpio Martianas. And they make all these videos in Latin from beginner level to more advanced. It's fantastic. This is exactly what we need to make it easier for people to speak Latin.
Because although I'm very dedicated,
Mm-hmm.
to ancient Roman history and also to Nova Roma, the complexity of Latin for me is just I
I
don't know.
understand.
And I mean, for instance, I speak German. I learned it at the
Mm-hmm.
university, and I've had many experiences in Germany over the last 20 years. And it has 4 cases.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many Latin have, like at least 7, right?
No. Nominative, genitive, accusative, dative, ablative, 5. And
Okay.
vocative. Vocative really doesn't count because it's such a
No,
minor character.
5.5.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Russian is more.
Yeah. I mean,
It's mm,
I wish I could learn Latin, but I've told you in the past that I just don't have a talent for languages, unfortunately, and I struggle, and it's just
I
one thing that I
understand.
wish it was different, but it's not.
Don't listen. I don't want you to feel guilty or bad. No one should about Latin. Some people have it easier than others in language learning. Some people, power through. I had a math tutor, when I was in the fourth grade, and I had that math tutor until I graduated high school. So, I can understand about working harder. I think things will change in Latin when we have more of a mass of materials like videos, movies, easy
Like
reader.
Harry Potter dubbed in Latin.
I have the Harry Potter books in Latin. I told you I wrote a Harry Potter fan fiction in Latin, easy
But
Latin.
but wouldn't it be something if the videos were dubbed? I mean,
Oh,
that would mean that it's, really arrived.
oh yeah, we'll have that one day. But I'm sure of it. But that's what we need. We need mass materials in Latin to make it easier at all levels. I mean, when I started out, there was just like Wheelock, and I didn't even know about Urbeg. So things are changing now rapidly, and that's a wonderful thing.
Now, I do have to say though that on some occasions I could read Latin inscriptions, not because I've studied Latin, but just because I have been to so many museums and places with Latin inscriptions, and they're often very formulaic. For
Yeah.
instance, if you go to the Pantheon in Rome and you could see the large black letters on the facade, it's not that difficult. I mean, obviously, you just need to know the abbreviation. For instance, COS is
Mhm.
console, and the last word means he built it. Um, and also, sort of on tombstones, they're also very formulaic. Maybe you won't understand everything because they might add a few different words, but I mean, I could understand, for instance, if it was for a tombstone was a slave or a free
Mhm.
person,
Mhm.
often I could know how much, or sorry, how long somebody lived until they died. So I mean, there's some basic things I do understand, and that makes me very proud to
That's
be
wonderful.
able.
You should be. What it is you've been exposed to these things quite a bit, and you're interested, and you absorbed it. I mean, and made an effort. There, the beginning of Familia Romana says, you would understand this. Roma in Italia est. Can you figure that one out?
Rome is in Italy, of course.
Yeah, see, you know more Latin than you think. I think you're sort of downgrading yourself. It's the
I've
the
taken
way.
4 years of Italian, so part of it is just being able to recognize, the words,
Mhm.
and to try to just understand the context and put it all together. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, the thing is, the way Latin was taught is until very recently really bad. When I went to UNC in 2015, uh, I enrolled and I had taught myself some, beginning Latin. You have 2 years of grammar, so I came in the second half of the year for grammar, and you learn Latin grammar, and then the next year, what are you supposed to read? The Aeneid, which is super hard. I mean, I would spend 2 hours over like 10 lines. That's not good. That's not helpful for people. You should have easier materials and then move up. I mean, it's taught in such a bad way that it just makes it harder than it should be.
Can you can you read ancient Greek? Because educated ancient Romans often also added Greek to the
My Greek
repertoire.
is rusty, but yeah, that's what a classics degree means. I took it Latin and Greek, so I had more Latin than Greek. But yeah, I studied Greek at Duke and at UNC. So yeah, I had 3 years of Greek and three of Latin. So yeah, I could read ancient Greek. I read part of the New Testament, and I also read oh God, what play was it in ancient Greek? I can't think of it now, but yeah, I read a play as well.
Wow. But would you say that there are more people learning Latin than Greek? I assume so, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
What's the
Latin's more
status of
popular.
learning ancient Greek these days?
Yeah, Latin's more popular than ancient Greek. Um, I mean, it's easier to read. You don't have to learn another alphabet. It was actually easy for me because I already knew Russian, and the Russian alphabet was derived from Greek. So reading ancient Greek wasn't hard at all. It was great. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Nice. Do you, and so with Turkish, which you mentioned earlier, so can you say a few words or phrases, or can you actually, I don't know, get into having a short conversation?
Oh, I just started. I can't have a short conversation. I can say merhaba, merhaba, that kind of thing. I can be polite, and I have I have my little Turkish is really different because it's agglutinative, and I'm watching some videos, and I'm making things like I understand anladım, what is this called in Turkish? It's all very what's the thing? It's situational. It's for me to get through my daily life. I mean, people are nice and pointing works. I can, I buy things at the fish market and bread, ooh, this please and all that. But yeah, yeah. Or like Turkçe öğreniyorum. I'm learning Turkish. It's very different. There are a lot of words, but it's fun. It's fun, and it's written in Roman letters, so there isn't a problem. In the 19th century, Turkish was written in the Arabic script. That made it way harder.
Okay. Now,
Oh,
unfortunately, we only have about 15 minutes.
oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, I mean, time has gone by so quickly.
Yeah.
Just before I continue, Tiberius Julius Nerva just wrote Tessa cor adirum in the chat. So I'm not sure what that meant, but obviously it's Turkish.
Oh, teşekkür ederim. Teşekkür ederim. Excellent, my dear friend. It means thank you very much. Teşekkür ederim. That's one of the words I know. Lütfen, please. So, if I want to go eat, have coffee, kahve, lütfen, uh, other things like that. So
Yeah,
we'll go out and have dinner, Nerva. I can do it. I'll order by the time you get here. I went shopping on my app in a Turkish store, and we're lucky today. We have things like Google Translate, which makes things a lot easier. I mean, it's just amazing.
and it's actually interesting that you mentioned the word Lütfen because uh, whenever I've been in Turkey, I see it everywhere, and it's very close to the German word for like opening the window and airing out your apartment. So every time I see that, I just think, maybe I should air out my apartment right now. So
It's
it's
very funny.
Lüften in German, so the T and the F are
Oh,
uh, backward.
great.
Now, um, I do recall early in the chat, or sorry, on the Discord. I don't want to pass over this opportunity because I just remembered it. Fulo asked a question about I believe is Penates, or how
Oh,
do you
yes, the
pronounce it?
Penates. The Penates are your household gods. I'm not talking about the Lar Familiaris, which is the deity of your home, and it's if you move, the Lar stays with the land. But these are the gods you worship. And he wanted to know because he's a new kultor, meaning someone who worships the gods, or kultrix, that's a female who worships the gods. And yeah, normally you inherit some of them from your parents, and then it would just be a normal sort of organic process. But we don't have that. So, how do you know which gods are your household gods? I mean, I can tell you from looking at Lararia in Pompeii, home altars, that people's penates were usually, 5 to 13, 2 to 13. So it's a certain amount. And the way to do it really is the only way is to just start. I mean, but helpful ways of sacrificing and pouring libations and asking them for things. But a helpful way to understand this is that Romans had gods, who were related to occupations. So Bakers would worship Vesta, students would worship Minerva. So that can give you a guide. Where are you in your life? Are you a householder? Do you have a family? Then, Lucina or Diana Lucina would be important to you in terms of family life. As I said, if you're a student or a professor, Minerva. Um, I'm a writer as well, so Apollo is very important to me, and he's one of my penates. I'm also very devoted to Magna Mater. She comes from Anatolia, and I'm Jewish, so I'm Levantine, part Levantine. So that's kind of like reflecting my background, and I feel good about it. I also, because I practice witchcraft, I worship Diana Trivia, who's the Roman goddess of witches. So these are ways where your personality, your interests, your family all can affect, who would be your penates. It's, as I said, it's an organic process. And just because you worship someone now doesn't mean you have to do it forever. I mean, if you're a student, worship Minerva, and then you go on and, I don't know, maybe you're in IT or something, or business, then you might, Mercurius, who's the god of business, comes into your life. And that's fine too.
And he also asked about how they enter the home. So is there some sort of a ritual that one performs when they add someone?
Well, no, but if you buy statues or something, then you perform a ritual for the statues, that kind of thing. But no, there's not like a specific home ritual. I mean, yeah, you do a ritual at your lorarium every day, and you give offerings to your penates. But yeah,
So there's not like a
yeah.
welcome ritual at the very beginning.
Well, you perform a ritual at the very beginning. If you're setting up your lorarium and you've got your penates there, yeah, then you do a ritual inviting the gods to come. Absolutely. That was a very good point. Before we end, shall we discuss Ukraine?
Absolutely. I just want to get to two messages in the
Oh,
chat.
sure. Absolutely.
One is a squish chin, and they wrote, "It would be nice to see a bigger Nova Roma membership in Turkey around the city, which was once known as Nova Roma in quotation marks Byzantium. Um, that would also be nice. It would be nice to have Romans all over, especially in Turkey, where there's so many ancient Roman sites and museums that I'm sure that there's interest in ancient Roman history per se."
I heard that there are Nova Romans in Turkey, so as soon as things are calm, I'm going to go contact them. Absolutely. I'm the governor in exile of Sarmatia, but I also have a duty to Turkey, and I'd love to build up the province. I mean, it's wonderful. This is, again, an example of not waiting around for things to happen. It's very Roman to get up and do things. Just like I was in Ireland, I thought, why aren't there Nova Romans here and all that? So I became the governor and organized things, and that's what I hope to do here.
And one more comment in the chat from Marca Hortensia Marina. She wrote that my penates are more Russian than Roman. I'm not sure
Yeah, yeah,
what that
she's
infers.
very good, but that's okay because syncretism is a large part of Religio Romana, and all over like Gaul and England, they syncretize local gods with Roman gods. So she's very keen on a Russian winter god who's Moroz, and we syncretize that to Saturnus Morosius. So that's fine too. There's syncretism is a wonderful thing.
And now, like I said, unfortunately, we don't have that
I'll be
much
right
time,
after
but
that. I wanted to say hi to my daughter. Sorry.
that's fine. Um, yeah, so we don't have that much time, so maybe about 10 more minutes. So the last couple questions, and it's about, um, I don't know how many months back, but when did you actually first arrive in Ukraine? And
Uh,
what were
yeah.
your first impressions when you landed?
Oh, I was tired. I arrived in Ukraine about about 5 days before Christmas. Uh, I came. I moved to become a colonist at the Earps. It was my great desire to do that, and my mother had passed away, so I had no more family in the U.S. I have a cousin, but we barely know each other, and so I had no ties, and it was a good time for that. So yeah, I moved, and I was really surprised by Ukraine because I studied Russian history, and the town Poltava is very famous. It was the site of a great victory of Peter the Great, so I was pretty familiar with it. I'd known Marcus Octavius Cordovus since like 2009 when he came to Nova Roma with this idea about building altars and eventually a temple to the gods. And I was very involved with that, the prodis and fundraising. So there was nothing really shocking to me or ultra surprising. It was a beautiful neoclassical town, and I really like that. I like physical beauty. It's nice to be in older cities. You know what that's like because America's so new.
um, a few exceptions. If you go to Charleston, it's very nice.
Yeah,
Has
yeah.
some antebellum houses or houses built afterwards to make it
Mhm.
look antebellum, but very few
Yeah.
exceptions. When you were there, did you speak in Russian and English? And were you able to see
Well,
a little bit outside of Poltava as well?
I spoke to Cordovus and Titus in English. They wanted to practice their English, and we were going to have Russian days for me to uh, really have my Russian progress into a more fluid way. I spoke Russian every day. I would go out shopping, daily life. People didn't speak English. I mean, it's not a big city like Kiev where all the young people would speak English. It's a lot harder. So yeah, everything I did every day was in Russian. You know.
And so you've also spent some time at the temple, and as the
Mm,
first settler in Orbs, which is affiliated with Nova Roma, although
yeah.
it's independently owned and operated. So, what are some of the things you did on the temple grounds?
Oh, the I celebrated the Carmentalia at at the temple, and that was like such a great experience. You saw the video; we made a live video of it, and that was just amazing to me to have this beautiful temple and this incredible altar and the ministry. I mean, everybody helping me because that's what you need. When you're doing it, you have your toga on and you are burning incense and everything, and you need people to give you things. It was just, and then the music in the background. It was mind blowing. It was so wonderful. One of the great moments of my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of pictures,
Mhm.
um, but I've also seen um, proposals because there's a temple and some altars, but the grand plan is definitely bigger than that. And yeah,
Mhm.
hopefully after this whole mess
Yeah.
uh, right now is going on, hopefully that could be go back on track because even though I'm not a member of the
Mhm.
religio, I just
Yeah.
still think that it's very interesting to rebuild the temple, rebuild the altars, and have like an authentic Roman site. Not that you could just read about, but that you could experience
Oh,
architecturally, and the sights and the sounds and the smells.
you've been to that's so astute. You've been to lots of temple ruins, but to be at a real temple, that's operating, to smell the incense, to hear the music being played, it's totally different. As I said, it was absolutely amazing, immersive experience, just
So
unforgettable.
yeah, I've been to a few temples that are well preserved. For instance, I can't speak French, but I
Mhm.
believe it's like the Maison Carré.
Maison
Um,
Cafe, yeah, yeah, the
but
Maison
but
Cafe.
that's only the facade. The Pantheon is also a facade. I've been to some well preserved ruins in um, where was that? In Tunisia.
Yeah.
But yeah, non they're all non-operational. The closest thing I've been to is in Germany. They have a reconstructed temple and they have
Mhm.
an
Yeah.
altar. And
Our
if you look on the Facebook page of Familia Popea, sometimes they'll have some pictures there. So
Yeah, it
that's the closest thing I'm aware of um, to the templum.
you have to remember those temples are also desacralized, meaning the gods don't come into them because they're not sacra anymore. They don't belong to the gods. So they're sort of like empty shells or dead shells. And the templum is alive because all the Lentulus and Corvus performed the ceremonies to inaugurate the temples properly. And so, the gods come there, and the experience is, of course, entirely different. So it's a very profound and wonderful experience, and I can't wait to go back and to help build the big temple to Jupiter Perunus. That was what we were going to do, and then the smaller, and then there's the temple to Vesta that's half built, and then the other altars. So
Um,
yeah,
has a cult statue been made yet?
no, no, no. That was ongoing.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you had an amazing experience, very unfortunately cut short. Uh, when did you realize that it was time to leave Poltava?
when the Russians were like bombing Kiev, we never really believed that the Russians would do that. We just thought it was the East, Donbass, and that they just sort of, make forays there and take some Donbass, and that would be the end of it. The invasion of and bombing of Kiev was shocking, and then we knew that the Russians really intended to invade, and that's when I spoke to Corvus and said, I've got to go. I can't be an American with the Russians invading. That's just super dangerous. And he started coordinating with so many people who are helping, like, Atores Plaikoninus, who works in, he drives, he's a, what's the word now? He's a
He drives the
paramedic.
ambulance. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and he's trained for these kinds of things as well. So, mass problems, civic problems, and accidents, and then there's Canis Latrens in Florida, who also is experienced in emergency things like that, and they were all coordinating about how to leave properly and where to go, and and then the next day we were like on the road. Corvus called me back and said, "We're going."
So I remember reading about it. It was quite a long journey to the border, and then quite a long wait. So how tense was that? Because it was in the first days. It was in the first days,
Yeah.
which obviously things are different today than in the first
Oh
few
yeah.
days. So the
Oh yeah.
situation is a bit different.
The drive to the Romanian border was really very easy and quiet. We just saw two jets at one point. We were worried about them, and they went away. So, and that was it. It was clear. There were people going also, but it wasn't a big convoy. It was moving, so it was fine. It's when we
On
got
back
to,
roads, or
yeah, we were on back roads. It was the border that was terrible because the official who was managing it, he hadn't, or she, I don't know who, hadn't prepared for any of it. I mean, they knew Kiev was invaded, and they didn't think that people might be leaving. So there were like only two people to process it, and they were just, when we were in the car, we were like 6 miles away, and it was bumper to bumper. It moved maybe like half a mile in 3 hours, and then Titus and his brother went to the front of the line. They walked, and they came back and said, it's impossible. We should walk, and we walked to the where the border was. Corvus's wife and young son Mark, and I, and Corvus, and Titus. They had to lug my luggage. I couldn't believe it. I didn't understand. When we involved, I had this heavy luggage, and there was like a horrible crowd. It was quite frightening, really frightening, because some of the people were really pushing dangerously, and you really couldn't move. And the border people just kept people out. They hadn't organized it. It was sort of a disaster. But it turned out that they were letting women and children through, and because Oksana, Corvus's wife, had her young son with her, she was allowed, and I was allowed to go through. So we were very fortunate, and by, I don't know, 10 o'clock that night, it took a couple of hours to process to get to the Romanian side. And once we were through, then we met the wonderful Slovaks. Now I can't think of their name. He's so wonderful.
Were they waiting for you at the border?
Yes, yes. This was the amazing thing that Tiberius Iulius Nerva of Marcomannia. He he wanted to help us, and his friend had worked. He was in IT, had worked for a bus company, and he knew a man who had worked there for 10 years as a driver. And he contacted him, and he and another friend drove over 3 countries to pick us up at the border. That's how tremendous it was. I mean,
That's absolutely amazing. And I mean, I find it astonishing that so many people, helped you open their homes, took
oh,
you
it was,
to
sorry,
different places.
my flashlight is hot. I had to turn it off. Oh yeah, I mean, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but the experience was incredibly it was incredibly heartwarming, and I don't mean it as a cliche, but deeply meaningful that so many people would help strangers. I mean, this man drove like 48 hours. It wasn't an easy trip. He had to
Wow.
go through all these countries, with someone to get us, and they were sleeping, and then they picked us up. I mean, oh, I was so relieved. I mean, that was amazing, and then drove us to Prague, where Nerva's friend, who's the head of the pagan society there, Philippe, put us up in his own home. I mean, he slept on the floor. I mean,
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the kindness and wonderfulness, I just can't get over it. I mean, it was profoundly touching, and I'll never forget that. I mean,
And
another person.
Prekanitis not only, sorry for the interruption.
No,
He
no.
not only helped you, or sorry, he not only hosted you, but he also did a bunch of coordination at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. He's very experienced in that. Yeah. After Prague, I went to stay with him, and it turned out that Oksana had relatives that she never met in Stuttgart, so she went with them with her son, and and Artorias was just wonderful. I mean, he put me up in his big, beautiful, second home, and I had everything. It was amazing. He came and drove on his day off to pick me up. I mean, 2 hours. I mean, it was just I really can't talk about it in sort of like a facile way, because so he did so much for us, and now he's trying to help others as well. I mean, Nova Romans have been amazing. I really can't express my gratitude to them and their friends. I mean, I can't believe it. I can't think of his name now. It's on my website. Who came and drove and got us? It was just above and beyond. He was a wonderful person.
I'm very glad to hear about all the help that you've
Oh,
had. So
oh,
I'm about so I have one more question to
mhm.
wrap everything up, but
Yeah.
before I do, I just want to acknowledge a few messages in the chat
Mhm.
before we go into the last question. And Marco Hortensia Marina wrote Salve Mater. So that's
Yeah.
probably reference to about 15 minutes ago in the chat.
Salve, mia figlia. She's my adopted daughter in Nova Roma. I love her to bits. She's a wonderful, wonderful girl, and no mother could have a better Roman daughter.
Nice. So Squishchin wrote,
Who is Squishton? Write
I'm
your
not
write
sure.
your Roman name. Write your Roman name, Squishton.
That person wrote, I agree. I'm not personally interested in participating in the religion, but I think it's important to preserve that by recreating the temple and the whole setting. So I think it's amazing.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, you'll have a different experience than I will, but it's part of Roman life. I mean, officials, it's intertwined. There was no, Rome without Roman religion. It's not like today where we talk about the separation of church and state in the US or in other countries. So they had more established religions. Yeah, the Religio Romana was part of everything. I mean, you couldn't get inaugurated without the augurs, taking an augury.
The last two comments, one
Mhm,
about Nerva, from Nerva, I'm just gonna
mhm,
sum it up.
mhm.
He is happy that you did not take an offer to escape to Russia, which was a very unusual offer that I also mentioned, or I also read, and I just couldn't believe that someone suggested to flee east instead of west.
That was Severus, yeah, of Scythia and Russia. Yeah,
But
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
just leave it at that.
Yeah, it was bizarre and very scary if I actually listened to him. Ugh. I do
Oh,
want to say, I do want to say that Corvus and Titus are back in at the Templum. I mean, Corvus is with the Defense Forces, and Titus is performing all the rituals at the Templum as we speak. So it's a wonderful thing what they're doing. They could have left at the border with me, but they didn't. They returned and they're doing everything for their country and the gods. And so far, the gods are able to protect Poltava and the Templum. And I pray and I do every day for their continued safety.
and I'm also in contact with Titus. I've also ordered several things in the past. Um, and I've received statues. I placed an order in November for a toga and a tunic. I actually don't have one, and he wrote me recently saying that uh, the mail is still going through, and would I prefer that he send that to me, or shall he just hold it and wait until things calm down? And I told him that there's no rush, that I could really wait for a tunic. I mean, obviously, it would be nice, in Roman garb to speak to you, but
Me
on the
too.
other
Me
hand,
too.
there's
My tunic and toga's there.
but I mean, on the other hand, there's many more priorities than what to wear on an interview or in an event. So I mean, we're all thinking about him, and we really hope this to be over soon, and the best to the people in Ukraine. Um,
Absolutely. May the gods
Squish.
preserve them.
So Squishton wrote that his Roman name, which is new to him, is N. Octavius Astronomus,
Oh,
and
Astronomos. Oh, someday. That's great.
he also mentioned that uh, what you just spoke about was an amazing story of help and cooperation. So I do thank everybody in the chat for participating. And so to get to the last question, since we're a little bit over time, is
It's
that
okay.
since you're in Turkey right now,
Mhm.
what are your plans, or what's in store for you for this year in terms of travel, in terms of Latin, in terms of, I don't know, learning? So what's in store?
Well, I finally found a place to settle down, so that means I can concentrate on other things, which is good. Uh, the Latin is starting. I have two classes I'm teaching next week in beginning Latin. I also have Latin for myself that I want to work on. So here are my here are my two Latin books that I actually fled with. This is this is a great book for Latin composition. Look how moth-eaten it is. And this is Cornelius Nepos, a kind of easy author for me to read, to get used to more difficult ones. Lentulus suggested it for me. So that's something that's very, very important to me. As I said, I'd like to come in the spring to Aquincum, and see everybody there. That was something that Corvus and I had planned on doing. We were going to give a talk um, in not not in Pannonia, in Marcomannia, en route to Pannonia. So that was something we were planning on about the Religio Romana. Other things I'd like to do is, yeah, go to a Latin week for the summer, so I can speak Latin. Be in an environment that would be fantastic. These are the things, and maybe when you come here, see you. That would be fantastic. And then organize the Turkish Nova Romans or anybody else that's here. You know, uh, there are plenty of Russians. Maybe they want to join Nova Roman too. Love the classical world. So
Yeah, I'm actually planning a trip to Turkey on April the 8th, and it's a different part of the country,
mhm.
but this book is very helpful. And there's just there's so many sites. I tell people in Italy, like when I'm going to Roman places, it's like fishing for dynamite. In Turkey, it's not quite the same, but in Italy, it's practically every village or every city has something.
Mhm.
But in Turkey, there's so many things to see that even though I have 9.5 days, I just feel overwhelmed because I want to do thousands of things in not that big of a radius. So it's really like,
Come
what
back.
do I have time to see and but
I'm more of an in-depth person. I'd rather be like at one place for a couple of days than go to a whole bunch of places, over days. So, base it on that, what you like to do.
um do you have any plans to visit Roman sites in Turkey yet? Or is that gonna
Mhm.
happen maybe in the next few months?
In the in months, I have so much to do right now in terms of residency. I mean, official things like that, and then just I have to learn some Turkish because I live in a small town, which is wonderful. But I have to, do everyday things, buy things and all that. I just can't, pantomime it. So that's big for me. I have classes to teach. I'm a online English and Latin teacher, so I have classes to teach. I also have new students. My neighbors, my Russian neighbors, need English classes, so that's going on. So I'm pretty busy. Uh, I don't think I'll be doing anything like that till maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe the spring. It's already the spring. It's March. I would say the fall, when it gets cooler. It's going to be really hot here.
And
So,
I wrote to you. There's a ruin. It's not that big, but it's still interesting, and it's only a few kilometers away. So
yeah.
I'm hoping that sooner rather than later you could visit it, among others. So
Okay. I shall. I hope so. I mean, I'd have to get a car. Okay. Yeah. It's like, there's so much stuff. I've only been here 2 weeks.
yeah,
I traveled through 7 countries,
it,
when I left.
absolutely
Uh,
amazing.
yeah. Ukraine and yeah, my heart's still with Corvus and Titus. I talk to them, and and I wish this to end as soon as possible, and for the Templum to be safe, and for their family to get together. But I'm
Absolutely. Um,
absolutely.
Even though I said, I would read the last message in the chat. There's a few more comments, just very briefly. Tarquitius Plautus wrote, great to hear about your story of cooperation with other Nova Roma citizens and to hear about your knowledge on the Religio Romana. Um, Also, one of my favorite ruins I visited and want to see again, that is the Levant, that is in the Levant, is the Grand Roman Temple of Baalbek. I would actually like to
Ooh,
visit too. Now, the only thing though is, as an American, there's a travel warning there because Hamas controls Baalbek. But I read that normally tourists are undisturbed for Baalbek when they go to Baalbek. Obviously, they're in a group setting, and
mhm.
they pay the entrances and everything is arranged ahead of time. So there's a travel warning, but it's apparently unproblematic. I would also love to
Mm.
go to there too.
Oh God, Baalbek, Hierapolis. Oh, definitely, I'd love to go there. That would just be mind blowing.
Absolutely. And also, Astronomist just wrote, it's amazing. Uh, Some people can travel around the world so much, yet I have never left the east coast of the US. I need to travel
Oh,
more. But I do have to say there's plenty of not ruins, museums on the East Coast. So you could see plenty of wonderful collections, which I've done between Miami and I think the farthest north is either Boston or Cambridge.
oh,
So
yeah.
along the East Coast, there's many different places. Um, the chat is still continuing. I appreciate all the comments in the chat. I unfortunately I can't get to all of them, especially since we've gone a little bit over time. But I do have to say thank you everybody for watching and participating in the chat
Yeah.
and
Fantastic.
taking the time to hear about um, so many different topics. I have also really enjoyed talking with you. We've actually never we've never really crossed paths before, and
No,
it's so personally, it's also really interesting to to communicate with you face to face, and to hear your voice, not just on a Facebook post, but
exactly,
live.
exactly. And Nova Romans are better, like 2D and then 3D in the flesh. It's a fantastic experience, and it's one of the most wonderful parts of Nova Roma, the friendships you make, because they're so
Absolutely.
enduring. They're based on so much. And it's, as I can say, I've been a member since 2002, and Nova Roma has given me so much more than I've given it. And I've certainly worked for Nova Roma, but I just want to say that those of you who are new members, and you can, testify to this, it's, hmm, I can't boil it down into just like a small thing, but yeah, Nova Roma is my home, in every sense of the word.
Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have.
Okay. It
Thank you
was
so
wonderful.
much.
Oh, vale, amiche, vale, and valete, everybody, valete omnes, valete novi Romani.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody in the chat, everybody participating, everybody in the future watching at home that can't make it on the live stream. Thank you so much. I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and I'll see everybody soon. And
I'll
either
be
if it's
watching.
either if it's Twitch or hopefully in person one day. But yeah, thank you so much, and till next time. Bye.
Valete.